Perfect. Go ahead and take it away.
Okay, so hi, I'm Jay Caldwell. I'm a senior Atlassian engineer. Um, been involved with Atlassian products since Jira version 2, Confluence version 3, in server back predating data center and cloud. I've continued to work with the products and progressed up into server, data center, cloud environments now. Again, like Vlad said, large and small clients, from Fortune 500s to 20-person shops. So, Vlad.
Jay is underselling himself. He's one of the best technical architects or engineers that I've worked with. He knows the Atlassian tools in and out. And like whenever I have a very difficult technical question, Jay is the last person that if he doesn't know the answer to this question, nobody does. We've been working together over the past more or less 2 years, Jay.
Yeah, 3 years now. Yeah.
3 years now, and I'm always surprised by the things that the Atlassian tools can do and I didn't know before. And Jay has been helping me get there. Um, I've been working with Envorso, and before that also as a certified Atlassian consultant for the past, I think 10 years or so. I think less than 10 years, so not as long as Jay. And before that, I have a technical background, so I have a developer mindset, a developer heart. And over the past recent years, I've been transitioning into program management. Kind of, it's a bit of a change, um, but that means that I'm in a good position to understand the problems that you're trying to solve, and then work with Jay to find the best solution for your problems. Because as you'll probably heard, Jira and Confluence are very flexible, and we're gonna talk about that a bit later. Before we get into the details about Jira, Confluence, and the other Atlassian tools, I want to mention some useful links, and I always mention those. If you need help, there's our website, envorso.com/services/enterprise agility, and our email addresses, Jay's and mine's. We can offer a free 60-minute session, either one of us or some other colleague that we have, on any Atlassian topics. If you want to share your screen, deep dive, bounce ideas, I mean, we're here to help, we're here to support. You don't have to do anything. It's free of charge, and you don't have to purchase absolutely anything from us, just FYI. In case you like how that meeting goes, and in case you're interested in a deeper and longer collaboration, you can also do a 5-day assessment of your Atlassian setup. That means that we look at what works well and what doesn't, and provide you with a roadmap, things that you would like to, you can improve. I'll be honest, this works best with large clients. I mean, a small company with 5 people, 10 users, 50 users, you don't need the 5 days assessment. Just a 1 or 2 hours conversation should be enough, and we can give you some tips and tricks. But in case you have thousands of people working on a Jira instance, things can get very messy. One last thing that we can do for you, if you're interested in a proof of concept, we can do that in roughly 2 weeks. We'll of course discuss beforehand what should be part of that POC, understand your use cases, what you want to achieve, and we will build that in hopefully 2 weeks. We'll do our best to build it in 2 weeks. I'm going to share all of these links in the chat, and I think also Morgan can share that with all of you. I'm not going to share the presentation because that's about it. Let's get started.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. And thanks for those offers as well. Please, everyone, take advantage of those and get some one-on-one help from Vlad and Jay and the team. And while we're here today, we will tackle as many questions as we can. So we got a couple ahead of time, just some basic things to get started. So Vlad, if you could tell us, what's the best way to get started with Jira for project management if my team has never used it before?
Um, it's very easy to start. It's very easy. It's free. What you can do is go to the Atlassian. You know what? Do a Google search on Jira Start trial, and you can start your own trial for free forever. So it's not limited in time. You're just limited in the number of users. I think 10 users is the trial
Yeah,
version.
10 users is the trial version, and there's no time limit on it, to Vlad's point. But there is some functional differences between, because the trial is what's known as the standard version. So it's a free one, but 10 users and under free. 10 your 11th user is going to start incurring cost for you.
That cost, is it yearly, monthly?
Can depend on what you are looking for. So if you want to have a uh, monthly bill, you can do that. If you're in a medium to larger kind of enterprise and you want to work out your own length of licensing agreement for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 3 years is about, with enterprise level licensing, is about where Atlassian stops in terms of the length of a contract. But one of the nice things, rather than a month to month, where you are susceptible to price changes, a longer term contract will also get you some potential savings, because a lot of times you plan the next price increase that happens doesn't hit you for until your next renewal, right? So you're able to lock in prices at where they are when they are lower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's talk about what you can do. What you can do with the free version of Jira. You can start a project. You can create a project. You can create a waterfall project, an agile project. If you choose, if you go for agile, you can go for either Scrum and Kanban. Um, there is all of the functionality well, most of the functionality is there. You can create your stories. You can transition stories from to do, in progress, done, from different statuses. You can create and configure your workflows, your statuses, fields, and many other things. Um, reporting, Jay.
Reporting is the vanilla reporting, right? So you're not talking, you have the ability to do search and interact with your data. What you don't get in the free, basically the free tier, or the standard tier, uh, is a lot of any of the higher, more complex reporting. If you wanted to interact with a data lake, for example, that only exists at the enterprise level of Atlassian products, where you can have your own data lake, as well as analytics, which is a tool that you can then interact with your data lake. That data lake automatically consumes all your data. But again, that's for enterprise level customers. For standard, you get a whole series of reports out of the box that come as part of your software project. If you're using Scrum or Kanban, sprint reports, your workload reports, what was delivered, etc. That's there. But for as well as, there's still dashboarding functionality in your underlying JQL that you can use to search and interact with the issues in the system. But some of those more complex reports generating from potential other data sources isn't there. For teams getting started, it tends to be enough, right? And as your journey progresses with Atlassian products, you may want to extend or alter functionality, right? All the Atlassian products generally have an app that you could potentially bring in, and those apps may be produced by Atlassian themselves or other third parties that extend the functionality of your system. And some of those are free, some are freemium, and some have just a flat out cost. And it's all going to be derived based off of what license level you're at, which is either standard, premium, or enterprise, as well as the number of users you have. Vlad, what would you said getting started, right? Like just kind of get in and get where would you say the first thing is to go and look at? What's the first thing that you want to, when you're going into a Jira instance and you're trying to learn something, what's the first thing you go and look at?
I'm quite familiar with the Atlassian tools with Jira, so I would go and look at the administration panels to see what was configured. First, I'd go to see what are the limits of what I can do, what are the bounds of what I can do, because I'm also want to understand the tool before I work. However, that is not probably what everybody else does. People sometimes just want to create stories and defects and epics and whatever they need to create, and that is enough.
Yes, we can get the slide of useful links. That should come out at the
Yeah,
end of this. Yes.
for sure. And if anybody wants to either email that to me or copy and paste so I can put it in the chat while we're speaking here too, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can
And
do
if
that.
Great. And the chat is working. We are getting messages. So please ask your questions, everyone. We want to make sure you get the most value out of this. Although I also know it's very valuable to just hear experts speak about what they do and the tools they use. So we'll keep rolling with the questions we have now. Just wanted to welcome anyone who's interested. Put the little hand raise function up so we can call you in to speak live, or drop your questions in the chat and we will prioritize those. Let's jump to a question for Jay that we got here. What are the key differences between Jira software, Jira work management, and Jira service management for project teams?
Well, it really depends on what your functionality set you're looking for. Conceptually, how Jira kind of started out was it was just Jira, and then became Jira software. It was a plugin that came along that added a bunch of agile functionality to Jira. And with work management and service management, they continued to extend and expand upon, well, we bring in this different sets of functionality with what the core Jira product is that lets you do different things. So what are some examples? So Jira software and Jira work management are in essence merging on the Atlassian side. So it's just going to be referred to as Jira. Past life experience, you could hear it Jira Core, Jira Software, whatever. It's just going to be Jira. What is the difference? Well, it's going to give you different ways of working depending on kind of your team and what they need to deliver. So out of the box, Jira ships with templates that are geared for getting you started for your projects, getting you kind of enabled for what you're doing. Jira Work Management and Jira Software are all around teams delivering something or accomplishing something for people within the system, people within Jira itself, or as part of software development or as part of a legal process, etc. So you can have HR teams, legal, software development, a bunch of different businesses inside the system. Jira Service Management is geared a lot more for a kind of intake methodology. It's originally designed around ITSM, IT Service Management, and but should not be considered to be just confined to IT Service Management. The basic concept is you have people who sit outside of Jira. These are customers. And you have people inside of Jira. inside it using Jira Service Management to answer whatever they're raising. So think of that as like that help desk kind of engagement. Business teams love using service management to collect, have as their intake mechanism for their core team. So the issue comes in, someone says, I need a report. They have a form that they can use to get the customer to fill out the report so they gather the correct information up front. They then have a fully formed issue that they can look at, decide, yeah, we can do this. Yeah, this is something that we are empowered to do, or we need another team to. And then if it's another team, they could create an issue from that one into their project, or just handle it within the total one. So really the main difference between software work management and service management is just the functionality of Jira that comes to you within that project, whether it's something that's geared more towards software development. So you need the concept of releases versus I have a business team that needs to be able to collect report requests and provide it to people who are outside of Jira. Well, then that kind of form functionality would be a better fit for service management. Vlad, did you have any other thoughts on like what you would consider as kind of the main differentiators?
No, I think you mentioned most of the things. I want to briefly touch on the cost and the pricing model that Atlassian has. JSM has a very different pricing model than Jira. It's the special Atlassian product. Well, first of all, Jira Service Management cannot exist without Jira. First, you would need to configure and install Jira, and then on top of it, Jira Service Management. The pricing model for Jira is for the number of users. So if you have a company with 50 people that want to use Jira, you would purchase a license for 50 users. Jira Service Management is priced per agent. What is an agent? Agent is just a name for a person that fixes the service management items that were created, the problems or the tickets that were created by end users. So in theory, you could have 1,000 users opening tickets that are addressed by just one person, and you would pay for just one license. That's the main difference. Of course, one JSM license is more expensive than a Jira license per individual. However, not everybody needs to be a Jira Service Management agent.
Thank you, guys.
One of the questions of like, what's a recommended method to generate Jira release notes and integrate them with Confluence in a tabular format to make it easier to tick through?
That's a great question.
So yeah, you want to start, Vlad, or do you want me to?
I mean, you go for it.
Okay. So I'd say a little bit is going to be your environment, right? So what I mean is your license level between Jira and Confluence, right? Whether you're talking standard or premium. I'm going to say with either, you still have your release section. So how I would generally do that is based off of combining Jira automation, and then Confluence automation to generate a page. So that overall kind of rough process, assuming at least you've got Jira software there and involved, right? So Jira software has a concept of releases. So you would generally associate your stack of issues to specific releases. Once you've released that's fixed version, FX version is the common Jira parlance. You would associate those with that. Once your release closes, you go through the steps inside of Jira to actually close the release. You would have some automation that you would build in the background that automation would be listening for a close action on that resolution and or on the release. Once that release is closed, you would have it then initiate a Jira to an automation that triggers a call from Jira to Confluence saying create the page. And then that page you could use Confluence automation to then feed that page over. More specifics is going to be, like I said, going to be depend on your environment, what you have, right? Because there may be additional plugins or apps that you are in your environment that may make it actually easier for you. There are some out there on the market that are like AI generated release notes. Is one that comes to my mind. I know there's about 3 or 4 different apps that kind of cover some more advanced situations around release notes where you need release notes and publication of those release notes to people outside of Jira or outside of Confluence, right? So assuming Confluence is your knowledge base where you're sending people to go and look at something, if they don't have that information, they don't have a license, you generating release notes to then provide it doesn't get them that unless you structure your Confluence instances like anonymous or read-only, something like that. I hope that answers your question. But generally, it's going to be a combination of vanilla Jira, leveraging release, automation, listening for that release to close, then separate automation to trigger a Confluence page creation. And then you can use automation on the Confluence side to pull that over or lay that out within the context of the page.
I think more or less this is the answer to many questions. There's an out-of-the-box functionality that Jira and Confluence provides, or the Atlassian tools provide, but there's also there's a marketplace app for that, which does things a bit differently, maybe in a more customized way. Let's talk a bit about the marketplace apps because maybe not everybody is familiar. It all started with Atlassian's business model, which said, in order to keep prices low, I'm going to develop and release Jira with a minimum set of details of configuration that fits most use cases. And I'm going to allow other companies to build extra functionality on top of the ones that Atlassian created. These companies are called Atlassian partners. And these extra functionalities are called Atlassian apps or plugins. I think previously the name was plugins. Now it's rebranded. It was rebranded as apps. As Jay said, some of them are free. Some of them have incur a cost. I'm gonna paste in the chat the link where you can see the list of marketplace apps. It's a few thousand apps, if I'm not wrong. We have all sorts of apps, from apps for Jira, apps for Confluence, Bitbucket, Bamboo, and the other Atlassian tools. For server, not for server anymore because that was decommissioned.
Yeah, but for data center and cloud, right? Like
for data center and cloud, exactly. You have tools to connect to Microsoft Teams, and if you want, I don't know, Jira, in Jira, somebody posts a question, a comment in one of the stories. If you want to have that information in Microsoft Teams, well, there's an app for that. It's a very simple app that you can install. Release notes, as I think Michael asked, there's a few release notes apps. Which one is the best for you, Michael? Well, that's a tough question. And with the limited set of details and information that we have right now, we cannot guide you in choosing one over the other. If you're assessing marketplace apps on the marketplace store, there's some things that I always look at. First is how many stars out of 4. So there's some apps that have 4 stars, which are great, amazing, apparently, or that's what the users rated those apps. There are some apps that have a rating of 1 out of 4. I wouldn't start with the lower rated ones. Also, there's the number of installs for each app. I think that's telling, or it might be telling. There's also one other thing that I'm looking at. One last thing, which might be important, is that some apps might be might be part of some different different class of apps. Some of them might be cloud fortified. They have just a label there. It means that they have, well, some of the labels mean they have better security requirements and more strict security requirements from Atlassian, so that you know that your data is not being tampered with, accessed, private. Yeah.
But it's basically as secure as it can be, right? There's different, depending on the different who it is and what, like there may be vendors that are another large piece of software where they have developed a plugin that facilitates the integration between the two systems. An example would be Jira and Microsoft Teams, right? There's a Teams app that you can you can leverage Jira inside of Microsoft Teams if an administrator of Teams has both turned on that thing and said, yes, you can use it, as well as your Jira administrator has said, yep, it's here and it's ready to go, right? Then there are other apps that would be things that are additive functionality. I want to be able to have footnotes in Confluence. Well, there's an app for that, so that kind of accomplishes that. Other times there'll be apps that are produced not from a vendor, not from someone trying to add some additive functionality, but are a partner where they're offering their idea or a set of behavior for you, and those are partner supported apps. But everything in cloud, everything that goes into cloud has a minimum standard that must be met. Data center is a little bit different because there is less testing involved. Dennis, to answer your question around your project management person and want to have this free playground that you can use for Jira and Confluence, you'll see there in the links, the second from the bottom, try for free. Both Jira and Confluence have a free level. So that free level gets you a standard set of features and functionality. It's called a standard license level standard. The number of seats, as long as you are 10 or lower, it's free. For the 10 or lower ones, they're as functional as the standard level lets you be. It doesn't contain premium features or enterprise features, but access to the marketplace, you can still access and install. So it does give you an ability to have your own little playground or demo space that you can show with your students, or even get to be more familiar. And I included two links, one for the Jira kind of getting started introduction, as well as Confluence getting started in kind of introduction. Those are both good places to start. Those are maintained by Atlassian, so they tend to be as current as they can be, and you don't have to try to maintain that yourself, which is also a big thing, because maintaining your own documentation is a whole nother gear frequently.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's just a very, very high level. It's a project management tools course, very high level, just to introduce students to Jira.
Yeah,
as a tool.
As a tool, and that would be right. Like it covers a lot of the main core concepts too, especially the Jira one. So it's what I tend to put in front of people to say, right, if you want some kind of step-by-step, some introduction, as well as not too heavy-handed on the you will do X, right? Because what some of the Atlassian documentation wants to get you to is the why, not the what you do, but the why you do it, right? So
Right.
if you're teaching project management, right, just because we collect business requirements is not a we don't just collect business requirements to collect business requirements. We collect business requirements so that we have clarity around what we are delivering and what the expectations of the business are, right? So that's
Yeah.
right. So that's the what you do versus the why. So like hopefully this gives you enough of the why that will be helpful for your students.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I don't know how many students you have at once. If 10, you have more than 10 students and you're way above the free tier. Atlassian has a 75% off for teachers and for classrooms. It's kind of an academy type of license. It's a special one which you'll have to apply for. I'm gonna post a link in the chat. Academic and license 75% off.
Yeah.
You might be interested in that.
Yeah. And you might also check also too with your institution and see if they have it laying around already. Because if you're a college, even community college, I know many colleges will have software development education. So a lot of times Jira comes in a little bit around that, or something like Bugzilla or whatever. So I would say see if your institution has like an organization teaching coding, because they may, if they already have it, then that then gives you potentially another space you could leverage. You bring potentially the ability to get more of your students in as well.
Thanks.
And
Thank you.
David, we're trying to drive consistency between Jira users and project managers. What Jira objects, data items correspond to these parts of a traditional project using MS Project?
I think traditional project might mean 10 different things depending who you ask.
Yeah.
Let's take all of the items one by one. What does a project mean to you? In Jira, it means, in some cases, or it means a collection of users, a team. If you want to represent teams as Jira projects, that is entirely possible. You have a team called Alpha and a team called Beta. You create two Jira teams, and this is where they are. This aligns more to the product operating model than to the project operating model. So ongoing work for a different product that you work. I don't know exactly what a Microsoft project is, but there's such thing as a Jira project. It might mean the same thing. I don't know, Jay, if you've worked with Microsoft projects.
Yeah, I have worked a bit with Microsoft Project and also worked on trying to keep Microsoft Project and Jira projects in sync. So in terms of I'm going to start with the program and the task and the milestone first, because project is very squishy. Project squishy even side of MS Project, right? So your program, right? That to me is an issue type, where right now conceptually vanilla Jira. So we're just going to talk out of the box behavior vanilla Jira. Your Jira instance and your configuration may or will vary. Caveat emptor. So the vanilla Jira instance comes with epic, story, subtask level, right? So that epic level is a higher level task and represents itself structurally, right? Project legend, milestone, epic, yeah. So when you, and this is where the words you said mean different things to me. For me, the program is a higher level kind of project, and that project will have works. A Jira project will have a set of work underneath it that relates to those higher level concepts. The Odyssey, the program, the initiative, those kind of higher level things, they split out because they're more of a, wow, this is how or why we're doing some of this stuff, and the higher level business statement of what we are doing. And at the epic and story level, you then break things down. But task, Jira's got different work or different issue types, and those issue types mean different things depending on the team. So one team's story may be completely different than another team's story. So talking in general terms of software development, a story of I'm delivering a small section of work that contributes to an overall epic is what we're kind of talking about. But a task is something that is different. A task tends to be just something that must be done. Third quarter security compliance, right? Something that we all need to do, we all have to go through, but it's not something you're delivering. It's not something that is contributing to your overall feature that you're delivering through your epic, to your higher level initiatives. Does that answer your question, or is that just confuse elements, right? Because we're trying to align several different definitions, and so it might be more helpful to actually have a conversation. But conceptually, don't get caught up in words. Don't get caught up in words inside of Jira, because I have seen a story represent software development. I have seen a story represent a translation task. I have seen a story represent contacting a fire department. So just because it says it's a story, it's all about the content of it and who and what instance you're in, right? When you're converting people, when you're getting people to kind of transition from project to Jira, that's a different thing. There needs to be a lot of support for those kind of activities, right? Vlad and I are working on the transformation right now that is a very heavy lift. And in that very heavy lift is heavy need to provide documentation, coaching, and training, right? So it's not just here's what they map to. It's let's sit down, let's talk, let's then drive this kind of change and start with those few things we want to start with. Let's align on verbiage. A project equals blah. A story equals blah, right? And then once you have your terminology, then you can start saying, okay, now we all know what we mean. Let's start working through the steps. And where I would start is like pick one of those defined things, pick an epic, start defining all your epics, work everyone through that kind of thing.
Let's give an example from the project that we work on, what we've defined as an epic. An epic is work that can be achieved by a team in, what's the timeline? Less than 3 months, less than a quarter. That's our definition. That's our very simple and very high level definition. What is the output of that work? I mean, it can vary greatly from development teams to support teams to security teams, HR teams, and so on and so forth. An epic has many, in our case, stories. It can have stories, defects, bugs. You can create as many things as you want to in Jira. As we said, it's very flexible, but we limited and we said, you know what, instead of tasks and stories, let's unite the terminology. Let's just use stories. Let's not use user stories and something else because it just causes confusion. So we aligned on stories. We have bugs and defects. We said, well, what's the difference? Nobody came up with a clear answer. So we said, okay, let's pick one. And the one that was used by most of the people in the company was defects. We went along with defects and we aligned everybody on using defect. Sure, it's a change in terminology. You're not used to it. But then again, if you want a common language in between all of the teams, if you want to drive better collaboration, at some point, some teams will need to adapt. Well, all teams would need to adapt, some more than the others. So what we said is we're going to take stories and we're going to take defects and we're going to put them under epics. Because we said it's something that can be done in less than 3 months by a team. What do we have above that? Well, we have something that we've named as initiative. That is something that can be delivered in less than a year. Something that is owned and coordinated by somebody else in the company. Something that in the org chart is at the higher level, because that work would be more expensive, more important to the business. It would have a different set of stakeholders than an epic. And then we decided to create one more additional layer, which we named strategic theme, which again goes above one level. One level in hierarchy, who is the owner, what is the timeline. We foresee a strategic theme to be something that can be done in up to 3 years. And more or less, those are not fixed limits. And how many people can collaborate when delivering? Well, it's a team of teams. It's a whole department. I think this is one of the first things that you would need to align. And it's one of the most difficult things, because when you go and have those conversations, somebody will be unhappy. You need to find the smallest number of, or the solution that upsets the smallest number of people, the fewest people.
Or the solution that everyone feels the same pain in, right? Because if you can pass the pain evenly, right, everyone's feeling it, right? Like it really depends. But to Vlad's point, I think also like a lot of it is, if you just go into Jira and say everyone knows what an epic is, and that's what you are launching with, you're kind of doomed for failure, because not everyone understands what an epic is. Everyone's skill set is different. Everyone's knowledge level is different. So unless you take the time to align, what do we, David, specifically your example, what do we mean when we say project or task, etc.? Stakeholders, project management, and team, right? You need to align all your teams. So if those high level or team of teams, they need to understand what are the things that sit underneath them and who are the players that sit underneath them. And if you're at the bottom, if you're the team that's actually delivering the work through stories, right, you need to understand how it chains up, right, and who it goes to, right? So this conversation needs to happen across all levels. And sometimes it is informative. Hey, we're letting you know this is what it is. This is what the standard is for our team. Other times it is just a discussion. Hey, we're having problems working together. Part of that is what you say is an epic, I don't see as an epic. We're not aligned. So when you say something is delivered and ready, it's not, because you're too small down here. You're making your story be too big, right? So it's all conversation, but it's a multi-level conversation. And all really starts with who has got the ownership for change, who can drive change.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Jay. When you talk about stories, epics, tasks, milestones, Microsoft project, Jira, and other tools, you don't talk just about the tool and the configuration in that tool, because that translates into people, organizations, processes. In most cases, the project management tools, in this case, Jira, is at the core of everything. And the tool needs to support the business to the best of the tool's ability. It sometimes needs to change, to be configured in a way that fits the organization. And sometimes the organization needs to change slightly to adapt to the tool. Because if you don't like one terminology that Jira has, and you're very strict with it, and you like everything else that Jira provides, but not this, well, what do? Do you go for a different tool? Do you go for Microsoft Project and force the whole company to migrate? Sure, everybody will be unhappy in that situation. So win-win. But then again, maybe that's not the right forward. So a level of flexibility is always important, and a level of curiosity. Okay, sure. In Jira, this works in a different way, but why? How can I adapt, or how can I adopt, or how can I make this work in the tool? And it's not always just a configuration. The answer is not always a configuration or an extra plugin. It's a discussion. It's change management. Most times it's change management.
And again, to really just re-accent a conversation, right? Too often people take a tool as prescriptive. This is the way. As a Jira admin, I will tell you there are many ways to accomplish any one thing. It all depends on your environment, your users, your data, and how you communicate, right? So another common thing we will see is people saying, I want, to Vlad's earlier thing he mentioned of, I really want this one thing named this particular way. There may be ways to do it, but some of those ways may cause you to fight the internet. So earlier I referenced some documentation here. In here, you're going to hear the term epic. And if you do search for Jira and Epic, you're going to find lots of results, because that correlation of Jira Epic is this thing and is a common nomenclature with some variation means something. Whereas if you look for Jira feature, Jira Jira Odyssey, we'll pick another word, right? If those, while you may say, well, this is the word I want to use, and maybe we can come up with a way for you to actually use that word, you end up fighting the internet, because when your users go to look for something, they cannot then pivot and find that thing, because Jira feature does not directly map to Epic. Right? Most of the technology and most of the terms and the documentation and the training videos that people have produced and what is out there floating on the internet doesn't match. So don't fight the internet if you don't have to, because you're probably going to lose.
So it's kind of like finding a balance between how customizable things are versus understanding that with new users adopting the tool, they're probably going to be confused. They're going to go looking for answers, and the answers might not be the answers you want them to have.
Want them to have. And
Exactly.
unless you provide them those specific answers in a uniform way and say, no, 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 ignore the internet, which good luck doing that, just focus here, right? The other thing I would also say is, in that, recognize at different points in time and different sizes, your relationship and what you want out of Jira will be different. A small team that is 20 people who's doing software development, they don't need the heavy hand of a Jira administrator and, regimented. They want to be able to do things and move as quickly as they can. And that's great. Till someone's running with scissors, trips and falls down and cuts someone else, not themselves. It's normally that cut to someone else that causes you problems. So as your instance scales up, as your user base scales up, you may need to shift to some of the terminology you have, some of the things you do, to flex away from maximum flexibility, all the customization we can possibly throw in this thing, we will do, to something a little bit more plain, a little bit more vanilla, a little bit more regimented in some ways, because you're trying to coordinate work across multiple teams, which will all ultimately have some small variance. The best you can do is hope for some small variance. They use this field versus that field, and it's a core date field. But if, to the terminology discussion, if one team says an epic is a feature and the other team says an epic is a translation task, that you're not you won't be able to align. Well, is that your translation task? I'm dependent on that being done, but that's not, I'm asking for branding, I'm asking for all these other things that the translation task is feeding, right? So it's really about alignment about what it is, discussion.
Great. David said very helpful. Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to let you all know we have about 5 minutes. Time went so fast. If there's any, we could probably tackle like one more question. If anyone wants to drop one more question in the chat, and I'll also let Vlad and Jay, if you have anything you'd like to mention before we wrap up, or any loose ends that are hanging from the conversation. I know there's a lot more we could talk about.
We could talk for a long time.
We can talk for a long time, just about 2 or 3 questions. We have a large pool of things that we've seen in real life with clear examples that were solved in different ways. We've seen many siloed decisions, and it works well if you're a startup that just wants to power through, deliver as fast as possible. That works great. But a company that reaches, I don't know, maybe 500 to 1,000 Jira users, they reach a point when that's not maintainable. And it becomes very important to align the terminology, the nomenclature, to align the processes, because, well, a large company is not a collection of startups, of teams that do not collaborate. No, you become more and more connected. You have more and more dependencies. And as the Jira configuration becomes more complex, it becomes more difficult to maintain. So as Jay said, running with scissors. You ask somebody to do something, and that has impact, and that will impact 10 other projects. And that's something that, well, nobody wants.
Mhm. Jeff says, thank you. We look forward. Yes, we do look forward to having you back, either for a specific topic that you're teaching on or another Q&A. We'd be happy to have you for both. And Kristen said, thank you. All right, I want to remind everyone that if you scroll up in the chat, you can find those links. There's the offer for the free 60-minute session with Vlad or Jay or another one of their the people on their team, solutions engineers. They also provide a 5-day Atlassian assessment and a proof of concept in 2 weeks. So there's a few things there to take advantage of depending on your needs. You also can grab the link to try Jira for free and to get a good Jira service management overview. Awesome. I think we've covered all the questions we're going to get for this session. Just some thank yous coming in. We really appreciate that. And everyone keep a lookout for our next presentation with the guys. Richard, if you scroll up in the chat, Vlad left a comment with all of these links right here in the chat. And we can also put them on the replay page. Oh, there they come again. Thank you so much. And I can share those on the replay page as well. This will be available on mpug.com under lesson training and lessons within 24 hours. So you can revisit this recording, and we'll put some links on there as well. All right, and it's time for me to share the PDU claim code officially, since we are at the end here. So let me bring that up on my screen. And share PowerPoint. All right. The code for today is MPUG 012225. MPUG is capital letters 012225. So you can get your credit for today. And I'll leave that up for a moment. I just wanted to say thanks again for Vlad and Jay for jumping in with us today. We will definitely look forward to having you back very soon to continue some of this discussion.
Thank you for having us, Jordan.
Thanks, Morgan.
Morgan.
Thank you. All right. I will say goodbye to you guys if you need to go. And I'm gonna just stick around for an extra couple minutes to show the community discussion forum. So if you haven't been in there yet, everyone here is a member. You already have access. I'll show you how to get there. That's another great place to ask questions. Go in there and look for questions to share your expertise. Just network with our other MPUG community, and some of our instructors are also in there. You're both welcome in the forum. You have MPUG credentials, so you can come in and keep chatting, deep diving on Jira if you like. All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We'll
Have a
see you
great
next
rest of the
time.
day.
Thank you.